Welcome back to The Haunted Beard, everybody. Thanks for joining me. Today I want to give you my thoughts for a new film that just became available on demand called Dead Whisper. This is, I would say, more of a psychological horror thriller film, and this one centers on this guy by the name of Elliot Campbell, who is this lawyer living in this coastal town, and he is invited out to this mysterious island with the possibility of being reunited to his recently deceased daughter, but at what cost? And Dead Whisper is the feature film debut for the director Connor Susi, and this is one that I would consider more of a character-driven film than a plot-driven film, as we're largely focused on our main character Elliot and really his grief and his loss and how he deals with that. And so the film is kind of just his journey and what he is willing to do and how far he is willing to go to potentially be reunited with his lost loved one, his daughter. And so it is a bit of an exploration into some of those types of themes. And Dead Whisper is also, I would say, more of a minimalist type of a horror film, as it's really more interested in atmosphere and kind of creating some unnerving, unsettling, creepy atmosphere than being outright horrific and brutal and in your face kind of thing. And I think that approach is executed fairly well. I like the setting and the location here. I think it's like Cape Cod, you know, this port coastal town sort of thing. And just kind of some nice scenery kind of gives the film a unique sort of vibe just with that location. I like just the lighting and sort of the overall kind of color scheme to it. It's very sort of muted colors, kind of gray, somber, a little more melancholy type vibe to it as well. And so through some of those visuals, you get those feelings of kind of loneliness and isolation. And through the main character, he just comes across as this lost person who's trying to figure out how to navigate and get over the loss of his daughter. I also want to mention real quick the performance by Rob Evan, who's the guy who plays the bartender and the historian. Does a pretty solid job. I like the scenes in the film that he's in. I think he really has just his performance and kind of the vibes that his character give off really complement the film quite well. And I think the scenes that he is involved are some of the better scenes in the movie. And I think he does overall just a really solid job and kind of helps contribute to that just kind of creepy, eerie atmosphere in the movie. And so really the atmosphere and kind of the minimalist approach, I think, are the best elements about this. But in a lot of ways, it does feel familiar. And in a lot of ways, it feels like kind of a typical movie that goes straight out to streaming that we've seen before. And so while there are some, pretty good and effective elements, a lot of it kind of, like I said, feels familiar and doesn't leave much of an impact. There's not much about it that's like egregiously bad. There's not really many criticisms I could make. There are maybe a couple scenes here and there that maybe feel a little bit clunky or could have maybe, been polished up a little bit, or certain little things could have been handled better. But for the most part, it's well executed. It's competently made. It just doesn't do anything too much to kind of elevate it to the next level where you're going to be talking about it much beyond after you just finish the movie. There's not a whole lot that you're going to really remember or, again, be talking about certainly on a year-end list or anything like that. If I could make any sort of, significant criticism, I would say I wish the film kind of got to the point a little bit quicker. The character doesn't arrive at the island until like nearly an hour into the film. And so there is a bit of the opening kind of, 2/3 almost, that feels a little meandering, to where while this is more of a character-driven film, which I have no issue with, I kind of wish there was a little bit more of an established plot throughout the majority of it. So you don't really get much until he kind of gets to the island. But I will say, though, I do like how the director handles and films the whole climactic sequence, as it really kind of gets into psychological type territory. And so there's just kind of some cool sort of bizarre imagery and editing to where there is a clear, very psychological element going on, to where you know, you're kind of more in this creative space where you can make these kind of bizarre decisions where things don't have to make perfect logic, and you can really kind of get creative and weird and stuff like that. And so I do like how the film comes together in the end, how it's presented, and how the director kind of visually represents the point that he's trying to make, and really kind of what this film is about, with sort of dealing with the loss and the grief and how far you're willing to go to be reunited to those you love, kind of thing. So it doesn't really do anything we haven't seen before, but I do like kind of the sort of creative representation and sort of the artistic stuff that's on display in that last sort of 15 minutes. So overall, like I said, there are some decent elements in here. There are some sequences that I think work pretty well, but the majority of it is not something that really leaves much of a lasting impact. It doesn't do much that we haven't really seen before. And so while what it sets out to do, for the most part, it does it fairly well and competently, it just doesn't leave much of a lasting impact. So I think overall I'm going to be maybe like a 5.5, something like that, out of 10 for Dead Whisper. So those are my thoughts. Like always, hit me up down below. Let me know if you watch this thing, what you thought of it. And yeah, would love to hear from you. So that's all I got for you. Once again, thank you so much for watching. Greatly appreciate it. If you got anything out of this video, you know what to do. Do not click that subscribe button unless you want to be haunted by the beard.